Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace reporting live here at the famous Blue Note Jazz Club here in New York City. As you know, for the last 15 years here on the Pace Report, I've introduced you to musicians that are moving Black American music forward. And tonight here at the Blue Note, a young saxophonist by the name of Logan Richardson, he's really taking not only Black American roots music, but he's also fusing it with not just jazz, but there's R&B and there's gospel and there's a little bit of funk. In fact, his last album, Afrofuturism, was really a myriad of how he sees music moving forward. Logan Richardson hails from Kansas City, and one of his heroes was the great Charlie Parker. Now, growing up in Kansas City, this gentleman had the opportunity to learn not only from some of the great stalwarts, including the great McShann, as well as Max Roach, but when he moved here to New York City, he played with some of the most important up-and-coming jazz musicians, ranging from the great Christian Scott, Gerald Clayton, the great Billy Hart, Nasheet Waits, as well as Joe Chambers, just to name the endless few. Tonight he's performing music from his upcoming music project, which is inspired by the great Amiri Baraka from his book, Blues People. In fact, tonight we had a chance to sit down and break bread on why Amiri Baraka's book was a very important inspiration point for him. Also, we sit down and we talk about the origins of Afrofuturism, as well as we sit down and reflect on how this music is going to move forward. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of Mr. Logan Richardson performing live here on the Pace Report, here at the Blue Note, here in New York City. I've followed you for, can we say 2 decades now?
Yeah, thereabout. Yeah.
I mean, because there's the ensemble with you and Jason. I've seen you play with Christian. I've seen you play with, a lot of people.
Right.
And you're doing some interesting things. I first want to ask you, this is a very important book, Blues
Absolutely.
People. And I had the honor of interviewing him on the Pace Report when he played, what is that venue? He played, it's the spoken word place in the in Alphabet City, Norican Poets Cafe.
Okay, right, for sure.
And throughout Amiri Baraka's career, his mission is always to make sure people know who they are.
Right.
This book is very important because without the blues, there's no gospel.
Right.
Without the blues, there's no jazz.
Right.
Without the blues, there's no hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on this?
Really, what you just said is like the most perfect summary that could have been made. Exactly what you just said. Without the blues, the interesting part about this book was that it told a story and a harsh side of the story about us selling us from the motherland in one part, because that's part of that trade, and then those of us that survived the harsh conditions to actually getting here, even if we were formerly a slave in the place that we came from, which wasn't okay. However, it was something that we were accustomed to, certain ones of us. It was the first time that we met standards in which we were treated below what an animal was treated like. And this is, I'm paraphrasing, but this is what he gets to. And it's interesting seeing how freedom is stripped and humanity is there's like a maintaining structure that fights to strip you of your human being at every single second of the day, and seeing the resilience and the innovation and the level of the refusal to take this and to grow from this, like exponentially, amongst the people in the way of communicating with the field hollers. And then the interesting part I found was like when it was getting into the church, where it was like that was how we were able to be let into the social part, was only on Sunday, because then we were allowed to present the music in the church. And then obviously like many of like these field songs were translated into church hymns and then changed with the lyrics and whatnot. And this book is the book that I never got in school. All the jazz history courses, all the ones they claim, nobody ever mentioned this book. And I remember when I found this book, which if you ask me now how I found it, I wouldn't be able to tell you. Somebody I'm sure told me, or I found, usually I remember these moments, but this one, I remember the book because it made me search inside of myself to reanalyze where I am from and where I've allowed myself to not be as free as I need to be free, even when it's seeming as if I am. And I don't want to be the one who Harriet Tubman was saying that she could have freed so many more slaves only if they would have understood that they were. And if this is the case, we need to pull ourselves back and kind of look at a full scope and see, we don't want to be ones that are and say that we're not, and be refusing to actually look at ourselves from this particular scope. And this book really changed me, made me go back to Kansas City, find some young, great artists that more or less were unknown, more or less on the national, international scene, and dig into this sound that I come from. And ideally, like the reflection that I see in this place in Kansas City, Missouri, which is where I'm from, and seeing like this, it's like I needed this. And so naming my band Blues People was really in direct tribute to this book, this man, and really kind of I don't really know. It's like a pilgrimage to showing respect for our foremothers and forefathers in the music. Because for me, that's the most important thing. If I can't get to speak about it in an interview like this every time, I want it to be stamped in. And then for individuals like yourself who are of the higher level, you understand where I don't have to say anything, and you immediately come, you know exactly. And see, that is like the cuckoo call, really. And I this book, man, this book is incredible. And secretly, it's a jazz book.
It is.
That was the thing that actually, once I got to it, I said, oh.
But it was a jazz guy anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And that was so that was the idea. So then when I wanted to make the band, these blues people, I don't know, they think they're gonna get blues, but it's really this other. It's a wider scope. It's like the Tao Te Ching. Like you want to show the way, and that's what he did. He showed everything around this thing. It wasn't just this thing. He didn't take the music and strip it away from the society. And so much of this happens in terms of the dissection of the music or bootlegs or videos. Oh, that's a great thing from 1961 or 1950, whatever. Like, what was the social dynamic for those people to get to this place and their whole life to get to that point to be able to produce that thing? And things we'll never know, but we can get lost in that and try to imagine and channel, you know, as much as possible.
I said in my intro, Blues People is a band that you are a new music that you are playing with your new band. And again, the experience is about the experience. I think part of our generation, and I thought as a heavy milestone as hip hop turns 50 this year, was 4 years ago when Nas performed Illmatic with the symphony orchestra. And I thought it was a pivotal point of what Blues People was about, because the experience needs to be introduced and reintroduced to the next generation to understand how we can move this forward. Is there some validity to that?
At 1000%. The one beautiful thing that I feel like always was manifested is that the music and the expression was of the moment, of the times, and obviously it's coming from a genetic pool of who we are and where we're from, and things we'll never know and that we do know, and things like that. And that's the beautiful part, and it can be harsh inside of there too, it's different for everybody, but I believe that we have to be able to have a shared mirrored image to be able to invite people in. For example, I may not know about this flavor, but I do know about ice cream. So if you say I have whatever flavored ice cream, I'm gonna probably try it because I know what ice cream. So give me something that reflects, and that's what I think is like one of the things that all of our masters and elders did in the music. However, with the romantic nature in which our history is looked upon with, which is really elegant and beautiful, a lot of times the thing that's failed to be mentioned is that, for example, most of all of the great artists that we love from the 60s were all like, as young as say someone like a Tony Williams, later in terms of age, teenagers, early 20-something, and many weren't even making it to be 30 years old before they passed and they left. So wait a minute, we're saying, so then let's look at the age range of all of us that we're able to be blessed with nowadays, and the work we put in and documented. Like, the comparison starts to become really harsh because you say, well, they did all this and they passed by the time they were 26.
Well, it's funny, piggybacking what you're saying, Robert Johnson died at 27. Jimi Hendrix died at 27. Janis Joplin died at 27.
Right.
Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, 27 years old. It's wild how they left so much in the time that they were here.
Right, for sure.
And I think that again, the experience, it's like when you look at Robert Johnson, and we have to dissect Robert Johnson in the blues a little bit. The blues is very, very simple. Hip hop is very, very simple. I always say hip hop is the baby sister to Black American music. Playing from what you're coming from, is it easier or is it harder, or is it something that you're continuing in the moment?
I think that it's something that's drawn inside of the moment, meaning that all of the work, so to speak, in terms of like spending time with the instrument. I don't say practicing, I say spending time. I think it's a different vibe. So spending time with the instrument and the music and one's process is the sharpening of the sword, so to speak. And when we're on the bandstand, like we'll be tonight, this is where we are the messengers, and we're there to receive and to deliver that message, in knowing what it is, and we're not even supposed to read it really. We're supposed to just deliver it and be tooled for that. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And I think the only way to answer that is to say that it's in the moment. I mean, I think that the not difficult, but the thing that becomes more important at this point in my life, and I know for many folks that I talk to, is really the management of time. And I think that with being able to spend more time in developing the music and in understanding that if we're able to be given this lifetime that exceeds that of Clifford Brown or Booker Little or Eric Dolphy or John Coltrane or Charlie Parker, there is a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do, and to be honest, it doesn't really matter singularly who we're talking about. I mean, I say that for the elders, and also certainly for anyone who is younger, aspiring, past that, and my generations around, everybody. I'm saying literally everybody, and any of the elders and masters. That's one of the things they taught me. I mean, if you sit down with Master Jabali, Billy Hart, he's the prime example of how to be that forever student of the music, where you're constantly curious, constantly amazed. This is incredible, and honestly, in this space, for me, that's where it's supposed to be. So therefore, nothing's done. It's like this is just a really fortunate blank canvas to be able to now start like figuring out how to paint. And yeah, but this book though, I have to say that like with the it changed my life. I can't even explain it like the way one was, but it was so inspiring and so heartbreaking and so uplifting at the same time, and honestly gave me a lot of information I never knew. That was a part where my jaw just dropped. I said, "What? I didn't know this. Like they didn't teach me this in history class."
He breaks down intricately.
Yes.
He breaks down intricately, big band to swing.
Yep.
He talks in I think what God rest his soul, Mr. Baraka had known the experience because he was a big lover of the music. In fact, I think he was a bigger fan of the blues than he was jazz, because when I came up listening to the music, my grandfather was all things Duke Ellington and Count Basie, and we both know both of those guys had the blues. But also, don't get it twisted now, there was B.B. King, Albert King, and Freddie King. They were the three kings, and their storytelling and their playing was masterful. And it's the problem that I think the disconnect with the blues now with this generation and even the last generation is that they think it's uncouth. Why do you think that?
Uncouth, you said?
Yes.
Well, it's funny. Like I think that how can I say this in an open?
Say it.
Well, I think that to play the blues, though, it has a shape or an idea of being simple. It's for me, the only comparison I would have musically would be like it's like playing a forever ballad. So it's very exposing.
Trap is like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is that I think that trap doesn't drive you to the side of the spirit as much as the blues does. Like the blues immediately calls on, I think because of this the way that it's ground into the thing, with trap being an extension for sure of that, but it doesn't have the same. If you hit something and you're dealing with like the blues, like, and it's immediately in, it's clear. It's not. There's no question about it, and it's like people stop. There's like, but it's also the same as if you start playing this intro to a ballad with the band not in there, and people are chattering. You keep playing that, and they're gonna pay because you're telling a love story. Like, oh, everybody's got to sit down and listen to the love story. But I think also the thing is the way that you send the intention, not only in what you're able to express through the instrument, but in your mental projection of that. Because we guide this. Like, if you want a room to be quiet, you can make that room quiet. Is it because you have to be louder, or do you need to be softer? All of these things are speaking, and this speaks in technique in terms of like that. I like to think about the way that it's moving. How are the people resonating with the space, and with the music, in general. The biggest scope, like when trying to deal with the respect of having the gift of life and understanding why we've been given this length of life. Not to say we over-examine that. However, however, love that, respect that, do everything we can to not take that for granted and go hard every time like it's the last time you'll have the opportunity to do what you do. And for me, it's important to always bring that level of clarity to the music. I mean, if it's a cracked note, if it's like perfect execution of a thing, for me, that's about like how I was able to handle delivering that message. But whether I'm gonna go for delivering that message and be in that space, there's no question about that. Because also I was trained and brought up in this tradition, and I don't believe in not being fully exposed. However, working on like an iron frame that kind of protects this like glass exposure. Yeah, I mean, because we want to be fragile, we want to give, but also we want to make sure that we're protected. And that happens by the band that you have around you or the people that you have around you. If you look at like our social lives and things like that, we're just kind of one and the same. When you read books like this, when you read Notes and Tones, when you read these books where it's your masters almost sending these message bottles to the future, it's important to pay attention. Like, own the rights to your music. Like, don't let brands like take over your thing unless you're actually into like a collaboration with that brand. Like, you're the one running the ship. And once one understands that power, then they understand the full plexus of what they've been building. Because it's not only in the music, it's in how you inspire other people, how other people look at you. It's like you have a responsibility you weren't even really aware of, actually, so you kind of have to catch up. Maybe other people were aware, I don't know, everybody's different, but for me personally, I love this music. I love our ancestors and the hunt for being able to find a way of identifying everything that you won't know in real time through this process. It's a very spiritual space. You just want to try to respect it, as much as possible. So, the music that is, and the spirit, and the sender of the message.
City too is very important because, you know, there was a great migration, and we talk about that in blues people. During the early 20s, 30s, people were leaving the Delta, and they were coming up to work, better life, even though there was still, you know, racial adversity.
Right.
The experience brought them to Kansas City,
right.
St. Louis,
right.
Detroit,
right.
Chicago,
right.
Gary. All of these cities were experiencing a growth of our experience, but in a larger sense.
Right.
Do you think that now we kind of have to go back to that, or do you think that we're reverting to the digital divide, meaning that everyone's getting detached from venues like the Blue Note and going and just watching it online instead of experiencing the music?
No, I think it created more of a ravenous vibe where people are trying to get out at any cost, even people that didn't get out before, because the need of chance is high. So, and I think you also still have those that literally have not actually come out for real since everything is quote unquote open back up. So it's an interesting balance in terms of kind of trying to redraw on folks that used to do something, because I think there's also an emphasis on the people that are just now starting to do things, and that influx of audience members and community and people like this alike. So I'm not really sure. I mean, I think that definitely like the inducing of these technologies certainly is here to stay. For whatever reason, and it may get deeper in terms of like how the metaverse works and things like this, in terms of like its pragmatic, you know, application and daily function, going to shows, doing this type of thing. But that may take some time, maybe not as much time as we think, but I think for sure, at a minimum, the nostalgia of physically going out and seeing the show will always be there. And I think right now there's a certain potency where there's more people going out and trying to be a part of things that are happening or exciting or potentially having any of that like involved, for sure.
Let's get back to 18th and Vine.
Mm-hmm.
You had Jay McShann, and then you also had another gatekeeper who was really an icon, the great Max Roach.
Absolutely.
What was it about Max Roach that really opened your eyes to really want to understand this?
Well, I mean, certainly, you know, like I mentioned, like when I found out about Charlie Parker, one of the first recordings that I had Max Roach on it. You know, we were reading the back of the CD and whatnot. And so for me, like, he was already a rock star for sure, because he was on all these recordings I listened to, and he played with Bird, and that was it. And so then when I was, the summer I turned 15 going on 16, they brought Max Roach into this 18th and Vine Summer Jazz Institute program that they started. And they were bringing in a different clinician every week. So the first week they brought in Max Roach, and he, yeah, I mean, you know, he came into the class, kind of a small setting, played for us solo, then played with like some of the teachers.
Was he intimidating?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Like not in the sense of not in the sense of being afraid of him, but certainly in terms of like the energy and the largeness of him as a person and an artist, for sure. That was clear. But yeah, I mean, I think it was like, because it was my first clinician, like my very first clinician, so that was like really, in that sense, one of my first concerts, if you want to look at it that way, even in an educational environment like that. And so I got to experience seeing him in that kind of intimate space, which is always different than when you're seeing somebody in concert in a recital hall or something like this, or in a festival or whatever. And then, you know, the next week they brought Shirley Scott. Then after that, the next week it was Jimmy Owens. And then finally, the final week they brought in Bobby Watson, who's from Kansas City. Yeah. And then the next year they started to proceed in like Chico Akiyoshi, Kenny Burrell, Richard Davis, Paquito de Rivera.
So you were getting dirty. You were getting knee deep.
Oh yeah, Jimmy Heath. Like when he came and did like a concert with the small group which I was in and the big band, we played all Jimmy Heath's music. He came when I was 17. We did that. And then yeah, that was all like before 18. So and a slew of other folks too. I'm not even mentioning right now. You know, there's a Bobby Blue Bland and and Houston Person and Clark Terry started coming like once every other month at that point, like, and then they started bringing Max Roach back every year. So no, I mean, it was pretty much a kind of a wonderland, like, you know. And then, you know, 18, 19, and I got to meet Bobby Hutcherson and Sir Roland Hanna and Ray Brown, and yeah, you know, people relate to me, like, I think on a certain youthful level, whatever, which I, you know, I thank God, like, it's great to be able to relate to folks, but I definitely come from a different space. I mean, yeah, Jay McShann, like, I used to go get my first grant lesson that used to happen at the local 627, which is the first black union in the United States, Mutual Musicians Foundation, a.k.a. And that's, you know, where Last of the Blue Devils was shot, the one that Clint Eastwood, I think he produced that. But all that with Big Joe Turner, born and raised in Kansas City, like, it was shot there. Jay McShann, Claude Philly Williams, another great blues guitarist, Sonny Kenner.
I have to ask you, Jay McShann and Big Joe Turner, they were shouters. You know, what is about Kansas City and the shouters?
You know, it's a good question. Like, you know, I would say, like, I think it's in the water. I wouldn't say that everybody has the
Kevin Mahogany.
Yeah, Kevin. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's there's something in the space. Like, I mean, the way I grew up, I mean, you know, it was just interesting, like, being thrown into the music. You know, I've been playing with, like, blues mans. Like, I ain't saying jazz, but like blues, which, you know, you understand it. If you understand it, if you don't, then you won't. But I'm not talking about playing like a blues on this other side. It's a different form. With and I had a lot of ladies that were band leaders as well. I was fortunate to have that experience as well, to be led by our mothers and be led by our fathers. And so I was given a really different, I caught a piece of the actual living history and got to be in it, you know, and that's something that, as the older I get, the more I realize, the more I see that, you know, it's.
wax industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a very important part of the interview that we have to talk about. Ownership of masters, publishing. And you've had a love-hate relationship with the majors.
Right.
And tell my viewers why this is very important in your trajectory moving forward, producing your own projects, but also tell the next generation of musicians how they need to get a hold of the business side of this.
Well, yeah, I think it's first, if you realize just all the care and concern that you put into creating the music, the one moment that you don't want to let go of it is at the moment when it's done and ready, and you're ready just to get it to the people. If it comes to a point where there's knowledge you don't have in terms of marketing or publicity or how to get more rumble about the word on the street, or if it's about bookings, like trying to get the music performed live, you performing live, like with bands or whatever, your band, or even if it's getting to radio play or recording, there's always a way, especially in modern day, to basically be able to produce anything that you need. Most of the societies that are surrounding like your publishing rights or your writing rights are all free, or they have a one-time $100 or $125 fee, which is not very much considering the millions of dollars you can potentially make with your music. And every time you make music, you're able to write a mansion or write a house or write a piece of land. Like if you want to look at it as an asset in this sense, it's a very incredible space, like from an economic point of view. However, it cannot be an incredible space from an economic point of view if the power is not taken and the resource is not dove into. So it's very important to own your masters. There's no reason for a label ever to. They are simply that. It's kind of like thinking if I get a bunch of sun-dried tomatoes and put them in a mason jar, and then I write a label and say sun-dried tomatoes, all of a sudden that label that I just wrote sun-dried tomatoes on now owns the sun-dried tomatoes that I just put in the jar. It doesn't make sense, but that's what we do in our music. And once you realize that the majors are nothing, what you need to be is fully independent and have major distribution, which is very much available via the Orchard and Sony as one route where you can do that. And it's a strong route. And obviously you have like TuneCores and DistroKids and places like this, CD Babies, as they were kind of like the OGs, like kind of getting that out. But the powers to the people, Bandcamp, obviously these places exist. So the avenues are there. For me, I've always been about, if you have dreams and things you want to get done, and those involve like certain things that are considered major or whatever, then I guess I want to be basically completely free and independent, but be more major and undeniable than anybody could ever achieve by the clamping that comes when they actually deal with a major label. Or any major entity, because they're interested in their percentages that they have overall with all the artists, not just you. That's why you have an A&R person that makes you feel as if like you're being wined and dined and you're the most special person in the world. However, they do that to all of them. They tell them all the same stories. So the thing is, you got to understand that for certain people it may actually work, and so that's where the magic gets deeper, because then you think, oh, that'll be the same for me, I just got to wait it out. That's not what you're supposed to do. It's a trick. It's a trick. I think Royce the 5'9" has a song about the industry and it being a trick, basically. On
De La Soul has a song, The Papes.
Right.
Yeah. It's wild because this record that you have out currently, it's on an independent label.
Yep.
But you still own the masters to this.
Yeah, I own the masters, and technically I own the label too. Wax Industry, I own it, built it up. We went with a licensing deal when I dropped it. That campaign went with the longest legs that I've ever had with any other campaign with any other label, was with when I dropped my first full length on my own label. And now the label just got distribution with Sony. So we're going to be rolling that way, coming out still fully independent in that sense, but major because we have Sony distribution. So, and I started my relationship with Universal Music in Tokyo, in particular in Japan. So I really value that relationship quite a bit. And my family over there in Japan, they're really awesome. And yeah, I think the way you write your music or you create your art or you do your thing, you just have to really believe and make sure that the homework you have to catch up on, that you have to catch up. It's not too late. It's not, oh, I guess I should have. No, it's just like, now I need to. And once we can get past that hump collectively as a group of folks, like, we'll see with a lot more clarity. And you definitely see a lot more dividends and clarity in terms of numbers coming back to you when you're the one kind of running your own ship, so to speak. So.
What does Black American music mean to you?
Well, Black American music to me is a representation of not only the current and the progressive state of where we're going, but where we've come from, and this kind of mystery that sits inside of this space of who are we and why. There's a lot of discovery and excavation that has to happen. However, for me, Black American music is the kind of personification of sound that has influenced the entire world to want to be better. And that's what this music's done. And if you have to break it down to artists, if you have to break it down to genres, we can do it on any side and be the ones that pretty much started it. And that's how it goes. You know, you can't change hard and soft or sugar and salt or any of these things, so we won't change any of those facts either. And unfortunately, in this particular realm, we spend a lot of time having to defend the most hard facts that are, and you know, as they keep trying to change what that is, but there's no way that it will be changed because we exist and we keep going, and God is the one that controls whether that is going to be or not. So with that, you know, our job is to reach for the heavens and light up the sky. So this music for me represents the space that allowed me to learn how to shave, to learn how to get dressed, to get to a gig, taught me how to grow up. It's like a surrogate parent in this sense. So the music for me means a lot socially. You know, a lot of friends, a lot of people that I know, everything came from the music. So it's love, it's life, it's definitely the grind, and it lives and it breathes, and that's the most important thing. It's not a museum artifact. It's something that lives and breathes, and for anyone that's a real one, you know, once again, you have to be a real one to step into that space. So you know, that's the testament to the continuum of it, is being prepared to be able to step into any space. So
that'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at the famous Blue Note Jazz Club here in New York City. Make sure you support Logan Richardson's upcoming brand new projects, which will be coming out later this spring. For more information for his upcoming tour dates and information on when his albums are about to drop, please visit him on social media by way of Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. As always, people, I can't stress this more than enough. Please like, share, and subscribe to my videos here on YouTube and Vimeo, as well as leave comments. And you can follow me on social media as well: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.